Hello, friends, and welcome to Season 9 of the Future Ready Librarians podcast series, Leading from the Library. This is a podcast for all librarians wherever you are in your journey. It is filled with amazing guests, important topics, and engaging conversations that will inspire, engage, and support all of us as future ready librarians. I am your host, Shannon McClintock Miller. I am the district teacher librarian at Van Meter Community School in Van Meter, Iowa, and serve as the Future Ready Librarians leader. I have the pleasure of working within my library and school community and also with others around the country and world through the Future Ready Librarian events, conferences, consulting, writing, and more. I am honored to bring these voices and the work of others to our podcast and to all of you. Well, today you're in for a real treat because we have a guest on that is totally new to our podcast. And I actually saw some great things that Angela was talking about and doing. And so I reached out and asked her if she would be on our podcast. And I'm so happy that she said yes, because today we're going to talk about collaborations through advocacy and community partnerships, one of my favorite things to talk about and do. And so we're really happy that you're joining us today, Angela. And I just
Thank
want to
you.
start by giving you a chance to tell everybody about yourself.
Sure. My name is Angela Falkenberg, and this is my 15th year in education, my 12th as a school librarian. I've had many different titles over the years, but essentially I stick to school librarian. Grew up in the Metro Atlanta area, and that is where I am currently, although I just spent 7 years in Washington, D.C. with D.C. Public Schools, learned a lot, built a lot of partnerships that I'm deeply grateful for. And that has really helped push the way that I continue my practice and the things that I value.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that makes it even better, right? Because when we can learn, I think one of the hardest but most rewarding things about being a librarian is the collaboration that we do. And it's something that we have to work and advocate so hard for, right? Like market ourselves. And so when I saw what you wanted to talk about today, it's something that I don't think there's a day that goes by that I go to school and I don't feel that way. And so I'm just excited to hear too a little bit more about like your journey, because I always find that interesting when somebody's been in the classroom or you've been with like in the classroom with a really dynamic librarian, or maybe with a librarian who, or even not a librarian who doesn't collaborate. It really opens our eyes, right, when we
hmm
become a librarian. And so just maybe go back a little bit and talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. So when people ask me why did I become a school librarian, I always go back to when I was student teaching. My undergrad is in middle grades education, and I still love the middle grades. But when I was student teaching, I was placed in an ELA class, and we took a visit to the library one day, and it was at the time where students AR has been around for a while. I think some places might still be using it, but where I was, that was where they were pigeonholed essentially in between these AR points and that range as to where they could check out books. This was in Middle Georgia. And so to see how that just impacted the students, no matter how excited they were about that book that they wanted to read, to be told, this is where you can pick from, stuck with me all through my student teaching. And so after graduation, I taught for about a year and a half in South Korea, teaching English. And so when I came back, I was like, I'm going to go to grad school. I'm going to become a school librarian. This is where I feel like I want to be. I like being in schools. I think I want to try something a little different. And so from then on, like I said, for about 12 years now, I've been serving as a school librarian in many different capacities and different grade levels.
And that's like a great story because you became a librarian because you understand like that importance of it. And I'm sure that wherever you've been teaching, they appreciate that so much because you are able to advocate for your teachers and students and really understand that. And so what does that look like in your school?
So I was thinking about it, it's like, what is it that I do that I think helps me build those relationships? And just my own personal nature, I'm more of an observer. And I like to pause and reflect before I act on something. So, no matter what kind of setting I'm in, or if I've been in a school for a while, it's important for me to stop and just observe what is happening around. And from there, those little conversations that we have, or the little things that I notice in the meetings that we have, that's where I go in and I focus. I'm like, okay, we had this conversation. We might have been joking, but you know what? I'm gonna go email the public librarian and tell her about this idea about reaching out to our, local MBA team and seeing if we could somehow collaborate on a wider scale to bring that love of basketball that we know our kids have, and then also get books in their hands. And so just having those conversations, even if I'm not sure if they're going to go anywhere, looking at Twitter and seeing, oh, there's this book giveaway. Let me fill out this form. Maybe I'll get it. Maybe I won't. So it's come down to a lot of risk taking, positive, sometimes negative. It is what it is. And just seeing where I can build those relationships with those just kind of baby steps.
I love that. You and I could be like twin librarians because a lot of the things you just said, I completely agree with it. I think when we start, and we go to a library and we start our job, it's, we don't have those connections, or we might not know what the kids love, or maybe we don't know our public librarian. And so a lot of things that we do have, that risk, but I find that to also be an exciting part of being a librarian.
Hmm.
Like I'll always say to people, even my family, like if we have a question or somebody in our life does, and I'll say, well, I'm a librarian, like I can always find that out. And even if you don't, at least we tried. And I think now we have so many great opportunities because of social media and conferences and connections that we have. And so we're lucky in that way because there's always a way that we can, find an in and out to different things. I want to know too, like, so we've talked about our teachers and also about our community. How does this affect and how has it affected your students?
Just thinking from my most recent experience with middle schoolers, for a while in DC, they did not have a librarian at that school. And so when I stepped in as the middle school librarian, it was just foundational. And so even in that time there, just building that excitement, and encouragement to come check it out, even if you're just come in for lunch. I'll have some activities set up. This is a place that is safe for you, a place where, compared to the cafeteria where it's really, really loud, very overwhelming, you can just come hang out with your friends, meet some new people. In DC, there were students who spoke different languages. So even if they couldn't necessarily communicate in the same way, they could still bond over those books or that art activity that they were doing. It was just a place of peace. And so for me, it was important to see that the students felt like it was theirs as much as a place that I was developing. And in turn, creating that safe space where they could then go talk to their teachers and encourage them, like, hey, let's come
Yeah.
to the library. I always tell them, you're my best spokesperson. I'm not here unless you are talking to the teachers. I can send them emails, I can post things, but if you're not telling them that you want to be there, they're not going to come. So you're going to be just as strong of an advocate as I can be an advocate for you.
Oh, that is really true though. It's like even for like I work with elementary kids too, and we were just talking in a webinar I did today about our new book vending machine. And a lot of the reasons it happens is because how our kids, talking about it and advocating to, get things like that. And I think that's something too that I'm sure as people are listening, they're thinking about like where you find the resources. Like, is it a grant, or have you worked with a parent group? Have you, gotten something from your public library? And so let's talk a little bit about that too, so other people can find these great connections too.
It's been a mix of all of those things, really. It really depends on what kind of school environment I'm in. So right now I'm in Metro Atlanta. I'm at an elementary school, and so we're very lucky to have an active PTO. So they'll offer grants, not just to the teachers, but they extend it to me as well. So they've been helpful in trying to develop and build this new library program, especially as we prep for a remodel and everything. And so just trying to make sure that we're ready to be that future ready and not a little more outdated. Um, Thinking too about other grants, like I said, taking that risk. A couple years ago, I saw the Laura Bush Foundation grant. I was like, you know what? I don't know that they're going to do that. This is a pretty major grant. Let me just try. Like, I know what the needs are, and I unfortunately couldn't get it through whatever budget we might have had and just the situation. So I was like, let me just try this. And I happened to get it. I did not think that that would happen, but again, you never know unless you try. Donors Choose, of course, is very helpful for even the small things.
Yeah. I know Follett has a new place too that you can go and look for grants and fundraisers. And so that's a really great thing too, is to be able to get some advice. And because we're on social, we can always reach out and ask
Yes.
people about those too. And so I think that I think that's something that is so great. And it's also great too, because as you partner with places in your community, I often tell people, like, unless you ask, like, you never know, you might get
Right.
something donated or someone to come for free. Super cool if you had a basketball team like right by you so you could ask.
We had the mascot come in. It was
That's
fun.
awesome. I love that. I think that is so neat. What's the most like unique thing that you've done?
Besides that, that kind of felt like my Abbott Elementary moment when we got the
Yeah.
mascot to come in. When I was working with a seventh grade ELA and seventh grade Spanish language arts teacher, they were co-teaching on a project just with community relationships and having the kids talk about the concerns that they have within the community. I had mentioned, I was like, oh, I was on the board for something within the city. And I was like, let me just contact our city reps and that rep for that district area. Because like I've already sent her emails about how we need to have librarians. Like, let me just reach out and see if she or someone else would be willing to come. And they responded. They were very gracious. They zoomed in with the students and listened to the students' concerns about community safety and what they felt like would help make sure that they would come to school and just what their views are of education in the city. Of course, I can't guarantee that there's always an action from that, but I think it helps when students at least feel like they're heard, especially by key city leadership who might not always take the time to come talk to students.
Yeah, that's really great. I know, and those are such great opportunities, and it's so great that I think as librarians, we see and we have opportunities to reach all of our kids and teachers and families. And so it's what makes it one of the best jobs, is that collaboration and the ways that we build these partnerships. I love that. Well, I love all your ideas, Angela, and we can't wait to see all the great things that you continue to do. And I just want to also give you a chance to tell people where to follow your amazing work, because I know that they're going to probably have questions and want to see what you're doing.
Yeah, I still have my Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. You can follow me at Ange Falkenberg. And I've posted, I've shared, you can go back and see some of those things I've done when I was in middle school, some of the more recent activities that we've done in the elementary. Again, this is my second year there now, so I'm still trying to build that culture, kind of fill out where my relationships and partnerships can be. But they can find me on Twitter.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Angela. And I hope that you have an amazing year, and I can't wait to see what you do next. So thank you
Thank
so
you. I
much.
appreciate it.
As always, thank you to all of our listeners for joining us for this episode of the Future Ready Librarians podcast series, Leading from the Library. And a very special thank you to our sponsors, Follett Content. You make a difference in our libraries, schools, and within our lives, and that of our students every day. We appreciate everything you do. I hope you can take what you learned in today's podcast and put it to use within your practice as a future-ready librarian. If I can support you in any way, please feel free to reach out to me on X or Instagram at Shannon M. Miller, or to my email at shannonmcclintockmiller@gmail.com. I am always happy to help. Until next time, friends, keep finding ways to lead within and from your library.